Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming today. My name is Josh Wallin. I am the IT Operations Manager for GCFA. I have been doing IT for over 2 decades, everything from answering the phones to being a consultant to doing sales and management. Today, we're going to discuss a little bit about Windows 11 and how upgrading to that could help your ministry out, be a more secure and beneficial option. So I remember being a kid sitting in church. I might date myself a little bit here, but the pastor had an overhead projector and a clear piece of plastic that he would write on. And on days when the air conditioning didn't work as well, he would get the sweat beads on there and mess everything up. And so we've really come a long way since then. With that, I'll go ahead and get this started. All right, so why should you be interested in Windows 11? Windows 11 has many changes in the user interface. There's some security settings in the back end that'll help you. And it really was designed with more of today's hybrid work environment in mind. I'll be candid with you. I really don't like PowerPoints. I don't like listening to somebody talk through a slide. So we'll have some screenshots. We'll kind of talk through some of the options, and then we'll just kind of do a live demonstration of Windows 11, how I use it and how I think it can be helpful, just some of the settings that way. So one of the main changes you'll notice in Windows 11 is the interface is going to be different. If any of you are familiar with Mac OS, Windows 11's really borrowed a lot of the design elements that way, as far as the taskbar is going to be in the center of the screen now. You're going to notice a lot more rounding on the windows, not as many jagged edges. It really has kind of more of a pastel look for colors. But then there's also some things that you can do as far as changing the layouts of the windows on the screen, and then an updated version of kind of their virtual desktops that you can set up in Windows 11 if you're using one monitor. So for the next couple of slides, I'll just take a moment. There's some screenshots that kind of show some of those visual changes. As you can see here, the start menu is in the middle of the taskbar. It's a little bit of a change. I think it works well for my workflow. And so it's very nice. You've got the rounded windows and kind of a different design language than they've had before. As you'll see here, kind of more of the pastel colors and just a more gentle approach, in my opinion, than it was in Windows 10 and the previous versions. This is highlighting the snack windows and the ways those can work. We'll go through a demonstration of that. It's a way to quickly organize the windows on your desktop and get the information into a more manageable format, as done here. And down at the bottom, you can see the different virtual desktops you could add in and use through the Task Manager button down there in Task View. One of the major benefits of Windows 11 is some of the security options that have been included. The Smart Application Control is to help protect against emerging threats by blocking apps that are known to be malicious or untrusted. This is something that has been set as default for Windows 11 22H2 update. And this is one way that it can help prevent unintentional malicious code or bad actors getting in and taking control. There's a vulnerable driver block list. It was around in Windows 10, but again, in Windows 11 22H2 becomes standard. You can disable it if you'd like. But what that does is it goes through again and goes through Windows Defender to look for any known bad actors and help try to block those so that they can't gain control of the system or get any data that way. Credential Guard is much in the same way. It's designed to kind of set everything into its own silo. So if someone should get into the machine, it could be set up where they would have limited impact for what they could get as far as information or trying to control the system. Passwordless authentication is a very neat feature that they've been improving. Passwords are not the most secure option to get into your computer. Windows 11 has it set up so if you have the proper hardware, you could use facial recognition to unlock and use your computer. You could use the Microsoft Authenticator app to unlock it, or if you have the proper technology, you can use your fingerprint to unlock and gain access to the system. The phishing protection is built into Windows 11 22H2 to help prevent phishing attacks. There's several different ways that this happens. If you're using a work or school account and you're using a Chromium-based browser, which would be Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, there's several of them, it will send you an alert if you're reusing the same password and ask you to change it. This enables so that if something is compromised, they only gain access to the one password and not more. It will also alert users if they are sharing an open text version of a password or putting it into Notepad, Word, or anything in the Microsoft 365 suite. That used to be Office 365, they're rebranding that. That is going to enable several user protections, and I would highly suggest looking at implementing that. Now I'm going to go ahead and kind of walk us through a little bit of Windows 11 and some of the things that I do in a typical day, things that I think could be useful. So you should be seeing my desktop now, and it is a mess. So one of the first things I really enjoy is the task view button here. If I click on this, it's going to bring up my windows in a display that I can go and highlight anything and bring it to the forefront. So as I did with the PowerPoint there. Through the same option, I can create and use different virtual desktops. They're going to change what's displayed and what's highlighted. If you look at the bottom in the taskbar, the only things that are going to show up are what's active on this virtual desktop. So in this case, I've got Word and Excel open, and everything else that I have over on the other page is going to be blocked out so that I can focus on the task at hand. If you click over and highlight on the maximize button, this is going to bring up the snap view options. This is a quick and easy way to select where I want the information to be to organize it a little better. In this case, we'll go ahead and choose for Excel to go to the right hand of the window. It's going to pop over there. Any other open applications are going to show that I can just click on to select and fill the screen that way. Personally, if I'm trying to transcribe information from one application to another, I like to do it this way. It makes it easy to copy and paste and move everything over. It's easily done, however, it works best for your workflow. If we go onto the settings, there's a few in here that I find very useful. The first one is focus mode. This was around a little bit in Windows 10, but they've kind of perfected it, in my opinion, for Windows 11. If you want to start a focus session, it will put you in do not disturb mode. It will stop any alerts from popping up. And so that allows you to focus on what you're working. If you hit the focus session, it'll bring up a timer. And that's going to allow you to work through anything you need to without distraction for that time. You can include breaks or not. You can stop the focus session or pause it. But this will allow you to get work done that you need to focus on without those distractions. You have your Windows updates like before. It's a simple check for updates. It'll go through, push anything you need that way. Personalization. There's different themes that you can use. Personally, I like dark mode. It isn't as bright on my eyes, but you have a myriad of options for customization and built-in choices that way. If you are on a laptop, you can go through and adjust your battery and power sessions. You have recovery options. If available, you can go through and set up on a shared machine for people to cast or to use that display. And it's overall, from my experience, very easy to go through and customize to your workflow for what you need to do. All right, that's kind of a quick overview of Windows 11 and some of the changes that were there. Really, it can be customized to your workflow and whatever you need, so it's hard to give an overarching view of what it can do. I know from my workflow, some of the changes I went through there as far as the snap Windows settings and the focus mode have really made a difference for when I need to get things done. The security changes are always going to be at a premium, and Windows 11 continues to introduce new options that way. As far as other technology updates available for the year, it really is up to what you need. And so that's why we would always recommend that you have a technology roadmap or a plan on where you want to go to see what your ministry needs. That's going to be different for everybody, and that's good. Finding a valuable partner who can help you with that is great. Windows 11 does have some different security requirements as far as hardware. It requires a TPM or a trusted platform module. Some older PCs may not have that, so upgrading to Windows 11 isn't going to be an option. So really looking through your refresh cycle and knowing that the end of life for Windows 10 is coming up in about 2.5 years, might be time to consider a machine that's going to have that information and looking to do that. And ultimately, here at GCFA with the IT team, we're here to help you out. We understand what it means for your ministry and how important your technology is to help you to do your job effectively. And that's our goal, is to make sure that you're able to do that as efficiently as possible. Were there any questions or anything you can put in the chat? We'll be happy to answer them.
Josh, one question that came through is, as people look at purchasing, maybe they're in the life cycle where it's time to purchase machines for their ministry. Can you speak a little bit more about, like, is it possible right now to buy a machine that would not be capable of Windows 11? And should that be a consideration as they're looking at purchasing new machines?
So any new computer should have the capability. Now, if you're buying refurbished or used computer, you definitely can get it. So that's something you would want to make sure that it is Windows 11 available. And honestly, if you're buying, you should be able to get that information from whatever site you would be purchasing it through.
I would also like to speak about that. It is possible to install Windows 11 on some machines that are not considered compatible with Windows 11. There's a way to force it. And some folks have done that in the past to try and work with the new operating system. It is not recommended because of those security features. They are disabled when you force it. If you do buy a refurbished machine, you want to be wary of that, that if it already has Windows 11 on it, you're going to want to make sure that it has the TPM 2.0 chip, that it has the right processor. A lot of the processors that came out years ago were vulnerable to an attack with the physical hardware, and in order to shut that down, they had to physically shut off some of the functionality of that hardware. And that's one of the things that Windows 11 is looking for. So you want to be aware of that. So as long as you're buying machines from a reputable vendor that are, like you said, new and are modern, they should be fine.
I have a couple more questions that came in. One is, can you expand on, you said end of life in 2025. Can you expand on what end of life means in the technology world to some non-technical people?
Absolutely. That's a very good question. Thank you. End of life means to Microsoft that they will no longer be supporting or sending out security patches for that operating system. So ultimately, you could still use Windows 10. It would not be recommended because any vulnerabilities or patches that need to come out for known issues aren't going to get pushed to that system. So you are taking a risk security-wise running Windows 10 after that date.
And to elaborate on that, because I know like in many churches, we have personal information of people attending in many ministries. In some cases, there's financial information. So in protecting that data is really, really important. So expanding on that, you talked about improved and security updates. Will this also affect the network side? Will there be any changes or any necessary upgrades on the infrastructure end of things?
In terms
through
of
Windows 11, or
in terms of the like wireless access points and connectivity to the internet, no, there are always new technologies that come out. There's a new Wi-Fi standard that's starting to emerge, and so those are things that they're still, I think, being built into Windows 10. But of course, with the new operating system, you're going to be able to take advantage of some of these new things. But in order to really take advantage of them, you would need to upgrade your environment. The important thing is you don't have to. Your access points, your networking, your firewalls, as long as those are being supported by your vendors, then you shouldn't have a problem there. Now, you might not get, again, a lot of the new features that come with some of the new hardware.
A general question came in, says that my pastor's computer is too slow. I purchased it for her 2 years ago. What can I do to make it respond faster?
well, that's a good question. There are a lot of variables that would go into that. It depends on the hardware that's being used. It could be some software that's on there. There could be malware that's in the background that's running for ads or other things. So running a good malware and virus scan is a good start. Unfortunately, there's not a silver bullet that's going to solve that problem without some analysis.
Right. And I'll speak to that. One of the biggest challenges that we see that churches are facing is, computers are expensive. They cost a lot of money, and there is a lot of variability. You might be able to find a computer that's $200 or $300 or $400 and a computer that's $1,500 or $2,000. And there's a good reason that those two different computers cost a significant amount of money that change, So, one thing that you want to make sure of in the front end that will make sure that you run into problems like performance issues more often is making sure that when you look at that computer purchase, you determine how long are you expecting this to last, what is the performance requirements for this computer for the duration of its lifetime, and having some realistic goals with that when you're buying them can often solve a lot of these problems. It is possible that there are software issues with it, but in my experience, most of the time slowness is caused by just software hardware that is underpowered and doesn't meet the needs of the reason, the purpose that it was bought for. But we
thank you, Jason.
certainly love to take a look at it and see.
And that's part of that technology roadmap that I was discussing earlier, was having the kind of analysis to see that on the hardware and make sure that the tool's gonna do what you need it to do.
And can you speak to, like, if someone was interested in having you all look, is there a church that's too small for GCFA IT to be interested in, helping with, or can you speak a little bit about that service?
Sure, absolutely. No, there is no church that's too small. We have very small churches, and we've built our pricing, the way we do what we do, around being accessible to the smaller churches. That's where a lot of the real need is. So we definitely want to make you aware of that. We and in speaking to the computers, we do plan on computers lasting for 4 to 5 years if it's bought for a church. And so our options, may be a little bit more expensive, but the intent is to make it last as long as possible. But we do have options and can certainly talk about those things. But to answer that question, no, we've helped churches that are very small, up to large churches as well.
Next question is, when do you recommend the upgrade, making the transition to Windows 11? Do you have any recommendations on that, knowing that some people like to wait and let something new kind of breathe for a little bit before they jump in? Or what are your thoughts on that?
It really kind of depends on the technology available and use case. Some people are early adopters who jump right in, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're still formulating our full recommendations for Windows 11, and it's in use for some of our computers, but it really kind of depends on the individual and their needs and what's available as far as their technology that way.
Right. And my thoughts on that are upgrading a computer system can be a daunting task, or several computer systems can be a daunting task. So if you can upgrade in a technology refresh, that really is the easiest way to do it. Now, I will say, if you have a concern with a mixed environment, some folks on Windows 10, some folks on Windows 11, if you feel like your organization would feel more comfortable if everything was the same, then I would probably either plan on moving to Windows 11 or staying to Windows 10 until you have to. But what you don't want to do is wait until that 2025 date when you have to get off by a certain time period, and you go and look at your hardware, and 4 of the machines aren't compatible, and it adds a lot of stress. So if you're able to build it into your refreshes, that's probably the least stressful, easiest method.
Awesome. I am not seeing any additional questions here. I'll pause awkwardly for a moment just in case there's somebody.
I'm glad you're able to see those questions. I didn't see any of them.
Is there anything else? All right, gentlemen, do you have any final thoughts or comments before we sign off?
Jason?
I just wanted to thank everybody again for coming out. I did have actually just one question pop up here. Why does Windows 11 make changes to older documents? So I believe I'm actually not familiar with that. Josh, are you familiar with Windows 11 making changes to documents?
No, that's a new one on me.
That's a great question. Why don't we
Yeah.
take that offline, and we'll discuss it and figure out, gather some more
If you want to
information.
send us your email address, we'll be happy to follow up with you all on that.
Absolutely.
Can you speak a little bit real quick? Josh, you mentioned that the rebranding. So between Office 365 and Microsoft 365, do you want to? And maybe I'm thinking, the only reason I'm asking that is I'm thinking maybe that has something to do with this question. Maybe somebody was on that in the past and now they're on the 365.
Yeah, so recently Microsoft started moving away from the Office 365 brand name to Microsoft 365. Some of the industry speculation is that's going to start changing some of the licensing options for Windows. That's kind of a in IT centric view of it. They're just trying to get Microsoft's brand more front and center and move away from Office so that people see it as not just a work related utility, but something that's for everybody.
And that's also available beyond. Do they have versions available for like tablets and mobile devices as well? Is that right?
Yeah, so the Office software will be staying the same. Microsoft 365 is the way it's put into the cloud. So if you have a Microsoft 365 license for software downloads, that includes for tablets, phones, and computers. And most available plans, it's 5 devices that you can run that software from.
I think that's it. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for sharing today. Everyone that's registered for this webinar will be receiving a copy of the presentation as well as the recording, so you can share that. And if you have any questions, that connectionalrelations@gcfa.org is good for any questions you have, any church related or support questions you have, you send it there. And if we don't do that or support that, we'll find somebody that does. So they're very good at that. So thank you all so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you in our next webinar.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, everybody.